Oi oi, it's your boy Slacky J, and if you're anything like me, you'll be reeling from the news that Jairzinho Rosenstruck will no longer be blessing us with his 15 to 25 minute fights. Quote unquote fights. So to cheer everyone up, I thought let's talk about Dricus. There's a lot of stuff about Dricus that's like, oh, he just go bonk and all that stuff, but he's a little bit smarter than that. I've talked before about how dexterous his left leg is. If you watch that Adesanya fight in particular, does a lot of great kicking with his left leg. There's obviously some weird stuff in there, and that ultimately goes to help him. It's kind of like I used to talk about with Robert Whittaker. He used to do about 80% good striking, 20% wild, silly striking, and the 20% landed really well because people were like, oh my god, what's he doing? But I thought today we'd talk about one particular technique, / sort of like set of techniques that Dricus used really well against the aforementioned Rob Whittaker. So this is that fight, PTSD warning, head and arm throw, fuck me, steps over into half guard like that to keep him down. This is all not what we're going to be looking at. This is though. Rob's trying to recover closed guard. The moment that he does, Dricus jumps round into a Tozi stack, which forces Rob to open his legs. He underhooks that near leg, and he's straight past Rob's guard, and he's pinned him down there with what I sometimes call catch wrestler side control, with the one arm between the legs, resting Rob's ghoulies on his elbow. So if we go back, this is Rob about to close his guard around Dricus. Dricus has the underhook. Notice that he's put his left hand on Whittaker's head to stop Whittaker's head from moving that way, as Dricus comes around this way. This results in the stack. Rob opens his legs, tries to recover. He's in a crumpled up ball position. Kind of just sucks to be on the bottom of this. And this is a really interesting technique. It's got a great history in combat, grappling. And it's one of those ones that's like, this is all interesting too. Guy walking himself back into the half guard to go for the Darce, and then Rob straightens himself out, so he elbows him in the head. It's all really good stuff. But this is what I wanted to talk about because it's sort of a big man technique, but there is a way to be a big man technically. The whole point of martial arts is to use your body weight. So it should be that if you have more body weight and strength, the more you should be able to use that. I think people think of big man technique and they think, well, no technique. And who do people think of when they think of big man technique more than Roger Gracie? You know, something like 10-time world champion in the gi, 2-time Abu Dhabi champion. He was Abu Dhabi champion despite the fact that he didn't like no gi. And Roger Gracie, if you watch any of his rolling footage, he does the Tozi stack all the time, walking around this way. Look at that. That's an awful, awful position for his partner to be in there. Stacked up on his own neck, bent in half. Basically has no choice but to open the guard at this point. And then tries to close it again here, but he's going to give it up. Like, there's nothing he can do from there. And then Roger is going to underhook that near side. One of the interesting things about Roger's Tozi pass, or rather his Tozi stack, is that he'll walk back into the opponent. So you see how his hips are up at the moment. Roger will walk and sometimes use this knee to push the guy that way so that his hips start to sag down this way onto his side before he even reaches back to get that leg. So you see he's already on his side there. Just an awful position to be in. So I call it a Tozi stack. It's one of a family of guard passes. This is Tozi himself. I think it's Roberto Tozi doing a Tozi pass. But the Tozi pass, or the Sao Paulo pass, it's a way of breaking the closed guard open from the knees. Normally you would need to stand. And one of the curious things is that Roger Gracie is on film multiple times saying, like, you should stand to open the guard. And he's got a very famous closed guard, so he says, no one in the world can open my closed guard from the knees. But he's also the guy you will see do this most, the low passing. So the key is you need an underhook on this side. Well, on this side in this instance, but you need an underhook on their upper body, which means being chest to chest with them, which is really unusual. In this instance, Tozi does a backward step to switch his hips. There's a lot of different mechanics that can be used in this. So he switches his hips there, steps over that hook. Look, he's already driving forward into half guard. And the really great thing is that this guy's top knee is not in his hip. If you stand and break the guard and then start trying to come in and pass, that knee will get in the way if you try and do a knee slide or whatever. This way, you start in front of this knee, and you stay in front of that knee all the way through unless you make a mistake. So another guy who was famous for doing this was Wilson Hayes, who had a career in the UFC, you'll remember. Wasn't anything spectacular in the UFC, but he was pretty interesting as a grappler. So on the bottom here is Ryan Hall, who you'll also remember from the UFC. Wilson has bicep tie, and he's going to do a little back step here. Boom. And he's going to use the inside of his thigh. See the way that Hall's feet are locked here? Wilson's thigh is going to hit this leg and scrape it off. Like that. Lovely. Unfortunately, Ryan Hall can pull his own shin up to his chest and stop you from passing. Here's another example of Wilson Hayes doing it. Again, quite interesting that he's got his hand on the bicep there, not an underhook. Holds the shin, steps back and switches his hips. Brings his thigh over the top of the leg, steps over, but unfortunately Hall's already brought his left leg over in front of Hayes, which stops the pass. And here's a couple of clips of Roger Gracie doing that, the regular sort of Tozi pass, the one where you're not stacking the guy. So he switches his hips here. Boom. Left leg back. Uses his left thigh to scrape the ankles apart. Steps over straight into half guard and starts pushing his way forward. And of course, Roger Gracie, very famous for passing from half guard to mount. Later on, gets pulled into half guard by the same guy, same roll. This is nice. If someone tries to Ezekiel you, putting your arm and armpit over their elbow works really well to just take pressure off. Roger switches his hips again, backwards, uses his thigh to scrape the ankles apart, steps over. And this is why I'm saying that there's loads of mechanics at work, because from this point where you get the underhook, this is like the common mechanic of all of it. Some guys will teach you to walk yourself this way to turn the opponent, to bring the opponent down onto their onto the side of their thigh. Other guys will switch their hips backwards. And then, of course, you've also got the stack variation where you jump up over their head. You've got guys who, when they get to their side, all they do is push down this leg. And you've got guys who use their thigh to uncross the ankles in a way that's a little bit easier sometimes, but involves taking your thigh all the way back behind you. So returning to the stack, here's Bralo Estima doing one. Walks around, crumples the guy up in a ball, has to open his legs, and then this is a position where you're basically stuck because you can't build any momentum from there, you can't build any force, you're just stuck with your ass in the air and your legs open. And Bralo slowly passes the guard. And the boy, Stuart Cooper, did all the amazing ADCC highlights back in the day. He filmed a little instructional that's on YouTube called The Pretzel Pass with Bralo Estima, and there's a load of clips of Bralo just murking British black belts with it. This guy actually tries to relock his guard when it wasn't a problem. But underhooking that near leg like Dricus did, and like Roger did in a couple of those variations, means that you don't push forward into half guard, you just go straight past the guy's legs. And Bralo does some weird shit here to cradle the guy with his leg inside his own arm. And eventually work his way up to triangling him, because Bralo's a wizard. But this shows one of the interesting points. Once you got the underhook, your job is that this guy's head, you ideally want this arm over the top of it. You want to do like almost an overback from the half guard, but you want to get this elbow to this side of his head so that he can't, when you walk around, just square up with you. So this guy on the bottom is actually trying to fight this hand off pretty effectively. Yeah, see, holding it at the wrist grip, the sleeve grip, still ends up getting stacked. And again, yeah, what do you do from there? You can try and pendulum them, but you'll probably put your own back out trying to generate some force from there. Bralo's underhooked the foot, and he keeps walking around. So here's some clips from that famous submission event where Dricus went through a whole team on his own. This is a can opener, and that is, into a sort of underpass attempt there, But the can opener is something that's banned in most tournaments. And I think a lot of grapplers convince themselves, like, well, if someone did that to me, I'd just armbar them, because that's like the old school defense that you're taught. But people don't practice it. People don't practice against full can openers. So you used to see this an awful lot in MMA. You'll see Greg Jackson's fighters use this as a position to start elbowing from. But when you pull that head up towards you, the guy gets crumpled up in a ball, and he doesn't have any choice but to open his ankles, to uncross his ankles and let you out of the closed guard. So it's kind of there's an awful lot of clever ways you have to try and open the closed guard if you're not allowed to do this. If you are allowed to do this, it makes closed guard play really difficult. It means that they've just got to keep getting your hands off their head. So you just pull them in towards you. Eventually they'll open their guard, and then you can just swing your arm under and try and pass. So what's interesting is that there's a neck crank involved, so that's why it's banned in most grappling competitions. But that crumpling the guy up in a ball to make him to make him uncross his ankles and open his guard is basically what the Tozi stack does. Crumple the dude up in the ball. He had to push him off there. Crumple the dude up in a ball. Has to open his legs. Crumple the dude up in the ball with the Tozi stack. He still has to open his legs. And even fighting that off is really horrible and tiring. In fact, he finally gets him with sort of a one-handed guillotine head crush thing from the same position. More of the same here. And I think this bit shows how important the underhook is. You've got to have the underhook to attempt this pass, because if you don't have that underhook, this dude slides out onto your back. With the underhook, you can go all the way over the top of him. His hips can come out from underneath you, but it's not really a problem. He's just getting stacked more and more on the back of his own neck. And he has to bust a gut trying to get you off him like that.